My 28 male wife 29 female slept with my best friend's brother a couple months ago, and I just found out. Please be advised that this will be a lengthy article. So I've been married to my wife for a little more than a decade. We met in high school, began dating, and eventually married after college. We are one another's first and only romantic connection. In general, we've had a really good connection. We seldom argue, we still enjoy spending time together, and we are unquestionably great friends. Until lately, marriage had been simple and joyful. She sat me down one evening in November to chat about our sex existence. We've never been very active in the bedroom, but it's never been a major issue. She's always said she's not much of a sexual person, and I've always appreciated that. It's fantastic when we have sex. There are no concerns there. But she informed me that night that she'd all but lost her sexual enthusiasm for me. She was kind about it, but she didn't sugarcoat it. She said that she just does not want it anymore. I assured her that I was aware of her situation. I was wounded, no sure, but I felt that this was a normal occurrence in a relationship that had lasted since high school. Especially because none of us has ever had sex with anybody else. To some degree, I still believe that. To cut a long story short, we discussed for a couple of hours and decided that this was not good news for our marriage. We didn't make any major choices that night, but we decided to take some time to think and reflect before having another chat in a few weeks. When that time arrived, she informed me that there were several things I needed to work on that would help her regain some desire. It came down to the fact that I wasn't making her a priority enough, and I hadn't made her feel unique or beautiful in a long time. And she was correct. I'll confess it. As a result, I made it my aim to work on it, and everything went off without a hitch. After a few weeks of careful effort, our sex life was restored. Actually, it's better than ever. It was incredible. For truthfulness and self-improvement. Then, 2 nights ago, I discovered a slew of text messages that I wasn't meant to view. It was my wife's birthday, and we'd gotten a little tipsy with some friends. She eventually went to bed, and I remained up a little later. When I went to bed, I discovered that my phone had died and that my charger was in another room. I assumed I'd borrow her phone to set my AM alarm, since I was too drunk and lazy to go fetch it. I grabbed it, saw that she had received a text from my best friend's brother, who lives a few hours away, and was at a loss for words. We last saw him at my best friend's wedding about 8 months ago, and I remember my wife mentioning that she always thought he was pretty, which wasn't a huge thing at the time. We're always honest about that type of stuff. But I had no clue they texted each other. I assumed it was a happy birthday SMS, but I wasn't certain. I debated whether or not to open it for a few moments. I've never been a snoop, and I'm not fond of the thought of reading her messages, but this seemed strange. Maybe it was the wine, but I had the feeling things wasn't quite right. As a result, I opened it. It wasn't a happy birthday message. To save this narrative from growing much longer, I'll simply say that I discovered a 2-month-old exchange of SMS and photos. The language and images were of an adult nature and rather graphic. I deduced that they had met in December when she was in his town visiting an old acquaintance. They didn't seem to have dodged since then, but they were sexting on a regular basis. I contemplated if I was dreaming for nearly 5 minutes before concluding that I was awake. Enter a new level of agony and nausea that I'd never felt before. With my judgment impaired by bourbon, I decided to rouse her up and confront her. She began by denying everything, but she was still extremely inebriated, half sleeping, and not making much sense. When she awoke a little more, she acknowledged to everything, confirmed what I had deduced from the writings. Then she spent some time criticizing me, claiming that my previously acknowledged lack of marital priorities had drove her away. Throughout the chat, I was a raving maniac, telling her she was a bad person and a 403. I'm terribly embarrassed of my actions that night, but if you've never accidentally discovered your high school love turned wife's clear adultery, it stinks. We chatted again yesterday, when we were both sober. It was still a bad talk, but it was a little more polite. She accepted responsibility, apologized sincerely, and told me to do whatever I needed to do. The problem is that I have no notion what I want to do. So, like many others before me, I've come here to seek your counsel. She had to go on a business trip for a few days, which is really very excellent timing since I don't want to be around her right now, and I'm just sitting here wallowing in self-pity and pondering what to do next. I adore this lady with all of my heart, yet I also despise her right now. What would you do, is my query to you all. Divorce seems to be a simple solution, but I can't get my head around it just now. People come back after infidelity, don't they? Is she really a nasty person who I need to break away from and focus on restarting my life? I'm afraid I don't know. I'm at a loss. This is the worst scenario I've ever been in, which, on the bright side, makes me glad for how simple my life has been, and I'm at a loss for what to do. Thank you for taking the time to read this. I apologize if this was too lengthy or unclear at any time. I needed to get things out of my head so I could start thinking about the next steps. All of you are in my thoughts and prayers. Update. I discovered my wife having an affair in early 2019. We had a lot of difficulties in our relationship that were probably never going to be resolved, and the affair was the last straw. We separated in June and were divorced by October, despite the fact that it took us a few months to reach a final decision, and I'm the happiest I've ever been. I spent the first 6 months of my new single life going out and enjoying fun like I'd never had before. Brief flings with a few ladies, which turned out to be extremely crucial for my self-confidence. That was enjoyable for a while, but then there was a pandemic, I'm not sure if you've heard about it, and I had to put that life on hold. Then a friend I'd had a crush on for a long asked if I wanted to be her quarantine buddy, just so neither of us would be stranded at home alone. And well, one thing led to another, and here I am, falling in love in a manner that I never thought I would again. We've been dating for a few months now, and quarantine life has certainly accelerated our relationship in ways none of us could have predicted. I'm not in any hurry to make any firm plans for our future, but things are honestly so amazing right now. She makes me feel so loved, beautiful and wonderful that I want to spend every minute I can with her. Please know that it is just temporary for those of you who have come here at the lowest point in your life, bereaved and genuinely unhappy. Even if it takes a pounding along the road, love will always triumph. Story 2. I, 23F. Haven't been attracted to my boyfriend 23M ever since going off birth control. When I met my boyfriend 4 years ago, I was on the birth control pill. We didn't have the best life, but we had a great relationship, and things have been going really well. Birth control made me miserable. I've been on it since I was 16, and it has always given me horrible mood swings and nausea. I switched to the implant 2 years ago, and honestly I think it was even worse. I finally decided to go off birth control altogether a year ago, and my state has been so much better since. My boyfriend supported me through this, and we use condoms now. Shortly after getting the implant removed, I noticed my libido changing a lot. I was overwhelmingly attracted to other people, and not so much to my boyfriend. I still loved him, but I felt no spark or anything when he touched me. It felt like touching a friend. I couldn't make myself feel the same way I had and just kind of went through the motions. I didn't tell him about this because I thought my hormones would go back to normal and this would stop. I also really didn't know how you tell someone you aren't attracted to them anymore but you still love them. Fast forward to now, and I think things are worse. I love him as much as ever, but I feel weird when he touches me intimately. It's not just that I don't feel anything, I almost feel like I want him to stop. We just reunited after a little time long distance and I feel like such an AE, because we should have had a big romantic moment, and I couldn't make myself do it. I know it's reaching a point where I have to talk to him about it, but I don't know what to say, or what solution we could even come to. I don't want him to get hurt, but I'm worried that this is only going to end one way. I don't think I'm ready to break up. I love him, and it's a very healthy and loving relationship. I feel like this is all my fault, but I still don't know what I can do.